Hey, welcome back to Together Forever. Today we're going to be doing part 2. So far we're starting to get into the action of the story. Looks like there's going to be a pig animatronic involved, because of course it is. And, as said in the back of the book, Jessica, our main character, who no one likes, is going to be fixing it up. Which sounds like it should be interesting. Let's continue. Mr. Thornton gestured at the prone pig. Meet Rosie Porkchop. Rosie has a pneumatic system, which means she can lift more weight than her fellow... She has a lot of pressure pumping through her lines, so she has quite a bit of potential, but her programming is... Well, obviously she's too heavy to move, except in this cart. Whoever gets her will have to come back in the evenings to work on her, so... Yeah, I forgot to mention, it mentioned in part 1 that, this teacher, Mr. Thornton, doesn't really finish his sentences. It's kind of his thing. So it makes for really hard to read, and I imagine really hard to listen to, if you'll bear with me and this book. Jessica nudged Brittany and hissed, "Don't look at him." They'd already had to do one after-hours project this year, and she didn't want to... Jessica and Brittany, you two get Rosie. Jessica and Brittany groaned in unison. "Now let's get the rest of these passed," Mr. Thornton said. Brittany whispered to Jessica, "Seriously? We have to come back here this evening and work on a pig?" Jessica rolled her eyes. Maybe she didn't like robotics class after all. When Jessica and Brittany returned to the robotics classroom after cheerleading practice, freshly showered and once again wearing their school outfits, they found Mr. Thornton at his desk and Rosie on the cart by herself at the back of the room. Mr. Thornton looked up and gazed just past Jessica's shoulder. "There you are. I put Rosie at the back for you to work. Sorry, she's too big to remove from the school, but I had to assign her to a team so I could trust to stay after hours so I could get administrative approval for you two to be in here for..." He waved a hand toward Rosie. She's all yours." Jessica and Brittany exchanged a glance, sighed in unison, and went to the back of the class. Together, they set down their leather backpacks. Jessica reached into hers, grabbed her lip gloss, and touched up her lips. Brittany did the same. They stood together and looked at the pig. Girls," Mr. Thornton called out. They turned. He waved a thin stack of papers at them. "Here are some specs that came with Rosie when she... You'll want to take a look at them. She's not your typical animatronic, and she has a characteristic that it's important for you..." Jessica strode over and took the papers. "We'll read everything, super carefully," she said. Mr. Thornton nodded. "I'll be here for a little while longer if you have any questions for..." "Thanks, Mr. Thornton." Jessica returned to Brittany and dropped the papers on the table next to Rosie. Neither girl looked at them. They returned to looking at the pig. "It's so, big," Brittany said. She sighed. Jessica nodded. She glared at the huge pig. The sound of dual giggles suddenly burst into the room behind Jessica and Brittany. They turned and watched Cindy and Mindy skip over to Mr. Thornton. Mindy carried the dog animatronic they were working on. "Why'd they get a small one?" Brittany asked. Jessica shook her head. She watched the little brats chatter with Mr. Thornton. Then she turned and looked at Rosie. She looked back at the brats and then back at Rosie. She grinned and nudged Brittany. "Picture this," Jessica whispered. She held her hands out in front of her like she was framing a screen. "Little Mindy and Cindy," she jerked her head to indicate the two girls, who were still talking to the teacher, "are walking into the homecoming dance like they're all that. They're like, 'We don't care if anyone likes us, we like ourselves.'" In a continued whisper, she mimicked Mindy's chipmunk voice. Brittany made a voice and nodded. "And along comes our new BFF, Rosie Porkchop, large and in charge." Jessica held out her arms to indicate the animatronic pig's size. "She's been programmed, by us of course, to walk right up to those two little twerps, knock 'em down, and..." She grinned, "sit on them." Brittany laughed loudly, and Jessica shushed her. Brittany covered her mouth, then hugged Jessica. "That's brilliant," she whispered. "Is that the task we'll give her, for our project?" Jessica rolled her eyes. "We should probably have her do something that won't get us in trouble, don't you think?" Brittany blushed and nodded. "But this might be more fun than I thought it was going to be," Jessica asked. "For sure," Brittany agreed. Jessica opened her backpack and pulled out her laptop. "I don't think this should take very long. We just need to download her command software and go over it until we find her glitch, and then we can tweak it to do what we don't want her to do." Brittany nodded but frowned. You do know, we suck at programming, right?" Jessica shrugged. "Yeah, but that'll give us a nice alibi later. We can say we have no idea what went wrong with the programming, what made Rosie go crazy, and knocked them over, or spilled punch on them, or whatever. And besides, it's the complicated programming stuff that we always get wrong. This is just basic programming of voice commands, right?" She pulled up a seat and placed it next to Rosie's front end. Sitting with her legs perfectly crossed, Jessica lifted the flap that hid Rosie's controls. First, we need to create the uplink, and then she pressed a button. A soft puff, followed by a series of metallic clicks and snaps that preceded a louder whoosh, and both girls jumped when Rosie's lower belly popped open. "What'd you do?" Brittany asked. "Is she gonna, have babies?" Jessica laughed, but then she shrugged. What if there were animatronic piglets inside Rosie? Even with the mechanisms that she must have had inside her exoskeleton, Rosie certainly was big enough to store at least a dozen of them, if not more. After exchanging a glance, Jessica and Brittany both bent over to peer inside Rosie's belly. Expecting to see a full system of hydraulics, and possibly a few baby pigs, Jessica raised her eyebrow when she saw that Rosie's belly was, for the most part, empty. A network of metal gears, prongs, and sharp-looking rods, presumably powered by hydraulics, lined the interior wall of the pig's belly. But the vast majority of the cavernous space was totally open, and big enough to hold a person, maybe two at most. Jessica stared into Rosie Porkchop's depths. She grinned and leaned back. Glancing up at Mr. Thornton, who was still focused on his laptop, Jessica tugged on Brittany's hand. Brittany turned to look at Jessica. "I have an even better idea than my original one," Jessica whispered. "What?" Brittany whispered back. Jessica hummed as she picked up the papers Mr. Thornton had handed her and began to skim through them. Brittany looked over her shoulder. Flipping pages, Jessica reached a section titled General Operation. Under that was a paragraph in bold. Rosie Porkchop is a dual-purpose animatronic. This system can be engaged in traditional animatronic mode and also in human interface or suit mode, i.e., Rosie can be worn like a suit. Okay. So to interrupt for a second, Rosie's a springlock suit then. Interesting. So is this going to be like the New Kid, where we get a springlock scene? Someone gets spring-trapped inside this dangerous, old, vintage animatronic. I hope that isn't all that happens, because we've already had that in a story. But I wouldn't mind if that happens. I mean, it's kind of cool, in a messed up way, of course. Okay, continuing on. There was more, but Jessica's gaze flicked down the page to the word warning, which was followed by a paragraph of bold red writing. Jessica quickly read through it. Rosie Porkchop contains springlocks. Yep. Springlocks engage to allow Rosie Porkchop to function autonomously in animatronic mode. When engaged, metal components fill the entire interior of the animatronic. Rosie Porkchop can also be worn as a suit. This is called human interface mode. When Rosie Porkchop is in human interface mode, the springlocks disengage and retract into Rosie's endoskeleton. Do not switch modes while Rosie Porkchop is occupied. Sharp components of the springlock system can cause serious bodily harm. She grinned and looked at Brittany. Guess what? What? Rosie can be occupied. So? Jessica didn't answer. She quickly glanced through Rosie's upload instructions. While she did that, Cindy and Mindy called out, "Bye, Mr. Thornton." Jessica and Brittany turned to watch the little redhead skip out of the classroom. Jessica glanced at Mr. Thornton. His gaze was on the laptop. Jessica dropped the papers, grabbed Brittany's hand, and pulled her close. She whispered, "So, forget what I said before. I have a better idea." "What?" Jessica glanced again at Mr. Thornton. He was still concentrating on his computer. Even so, she turned her back and kept her voice low. Rosie's pneumatic system powers that trapdoor, and it's designed to be a hermetic seal. Brittany frowned a question. Those seals that keep in anything. Oh, right. The instructions said something about, using Rosie as a container for something. She waved a hand. I don't know. I didn't read it closely. But here's what I'm thinking. She scooted her chair closer to Brittany's. Those two little snots think they can come to the dance. Well, they're coming all right, but not in their ruffled little dresses. They're coming in her. She pointed at Rosie Porkchop, specifically at the gaping belly. Brittany looked at Rosie's empty stomach and slowly started to grin. "We're going to stick them in there?" Jessica shook her head. "We aren't. We'll have Rosie do it. It'll serve them right. They'll all be like, we do everything together, from inside Rosie Porkchop." "Oh, that's inspired," Brittany said. "I know, right?" Brittany nodded, her eyes bright. "This is going to be so savage." Jessica grinned. "All we have to do is program Rosie to grab the little snots and put them into her belly. Once they're in, the door will close." She pointed to the pink door that hung open under Rosie's belly. She tapped it. "See, it has the soft sealed fabric stuff on the outside, but it's hard metal on the inside. Once it's locked and sealed, they won't be able to get out." She grinned. They'll be trapped forever. Brittany nodded again. I love it. Jessica smiled. Good. Me too. She grinned. There's just one problem. What? Well, it's going to take us a while. Jessica reached into Rosie's control panel and pulled out a clump of wires. How about I just get the uplink going and then we can go have burgers with the guys? After that, we'll come back here and spend the evening programming Rosie. Okay. Jessica opened her laptop and connected the upload wire. She handed another wire to Brittany. Plug that into the wall. I guess she has to charge too. Brittany nodded and dutifully plugged in the pig. Then she watched Jessica create an uplink with Rosie. Jessica noticed Brittany examining her nails again, then saw her friend stand to get to her backpack. Brittany snapped her fingers and sat back down. What? Jessica asked. When I reached for my backpack, I had an idea. Instead of just, she lowered her voice to a whisper, trapping them, why don't we program Rosie to serve us while they're stuck inside? That'll make Mindy and Sydney like our own ladies' maid. They can be our servant, like fetching things for us and waiting on us. Wow, these guys think they can do all this? That they can program all this in like, what, a day? Big dreams. Like royalty, Jessica said, beaming. You're so good. Brittany took a bow. She looked at Mr. Thornton, who had stood up at his desk. Hurry up and get everything going. I can't wait to do this. Me neither. Jessica grinned and returned to her task. This was why she loved Brittany so much. She and Jessica had, shared thoughts. They always agreed, and one of them nearly always could take the other's idea and make it better. They made an unstoppable team. Jessica tapped a couple of keys and got the upload started. Then she grabbed her backpack and headed toward the door. Brittany followed her. Because robotics was in the most deserted wing that could be locked off from the rest of the school, Mr. Thornton had gotten permission from the principal to let some of his students come in after hours to work on projects. They used an exterior door that gave them access to this wing only. Before they reached the door, Jessica called out, Mr. Thornton. He didn't look up from his computer. We've got Rosie's upload going. We're going to come back later to work on her. Can we have the after-hours key? Sounds good. Oh, sure, yeah. Mr. Thornton pulled a key from his desk drawer. Jessica took the key from their teacher, and the girls headed to the classroom door. Bye, Mr. Thornton, they called in unison as they left. Oh, goodbye, he called after them. As they walked away, Brittany said, He said goodbye, not bye. Jessica glanced at her friend. So? I don't know, I guess it just sounds, kind of final, you know? Jessica grinned and hugged Brittany. You slay me. Jessica and Brittany, on Derek and Roman's arms, crossed the crowded parking lot in front of the Burger Dome, a local fast food hangout known for the best burgers in the county and even better milkshakes. If it wasn't for the food, Jessica wouldn't have been caught dead in the place. It was housed in a bright orange building shaped like a hamburger bun. How cliché could you get? But it was in the place to be after school. The parking lot was filled with cars, bicycles, and big groups of students on foot. At least 3 different radios played, creating a musical war between rap, pop, and country. A few junior girls were dancing at the edge of the lot. Jessica recognized most of her classmates among the crowd, and many of them were watching the royal couples head toward the restaurant's lobby. Because the pavement was uneven, Jessica shifted her gaze to her feet. She was about to trip and put a hitch in her perfect glide. So, she was careful. Her downcast attention, however, didn't warn her of potential other hazards. Suddenly, a bicycle swept past Jessica, its back wheels barely missing her left toes. She faltered, and if it hadn't been for Derek's arm, which she quickly clutched with all her strength, she would have lost her balance. Watch where you're going, Derek bellowed at the bicyclist. Jessica looked up to see who had nearly run over her toes, and she sighed dramatically. Of course, she muttered. What, babe? Derek asked. Jessica smiled up at him. She didn't want to get into it, so she just said, 8th graders. Yeah, tell me about it. They're everywhere. Jessica glanced at Brittany, who gave Jessica a quick smile. She'd also noticed that the kid on the bike had been Mindy. Jessica was sure Brittany was thinking the exact same thing. It wouldn't be long before they got payback. Aw man, Derek said, as he pushed open Burger Dome's double glass doors. Look at the line. This is worse than Friday nights after a game. Jessica noted that the semi-line-shaped cluster of students pressing into the lobby, waiting their turn to order. Inhaling the smells of onions, french fries, and charbroiled burgers, she scanned the tables in the small dining area. Every one of the orange-topped metal tables was occupied. Every dark blue booth was jammed with kids, and half of them, she couldn't help but notice, were munchkins, clearly 7th and 8th graders. It's bad enough they're in our school, she said, but now they're taking over our hangouts too? I know, right? Brittany said. It was amazing that Brittany had even heard Jessica. The noise level in the place was more rock concert than restaurant. Jessica threw back her hair and lifted her chin. "Excuse me," she said loud enough to prompt the kid in front of her to turn. She stepped toward them. "You need to let me by." She said in the same tone her mother used for everyone who worked for her. It was a cross between imperious and soothing. Just the right combination to make a person feel not only was it impossible for them to say no, but they'd feel better after saying yes. The kids parted and Jessica swept through the opening. When she reached the next barrier of kids, she repeated the process. In under 20 seconds, she stood at the shiny silver counter in front of a kitchen filled with scurrying orange and blue-clad losers who were too poor or ugly to get a decent job. More such losers stood behind 2 cash registers. One of them wore a name tag that read Irvin. Irvin was ringing up an order, but he glanced over at Jessica and grinned at her. "Hey, Irvin," she said in a tone that suggested she couldn't possibly be happier to see anyone. "You're rocking the orange and blue today." Irvin, a skinny guy with bad skin and worse teeth, flushed. "Hi, Jessica," he said as he counted out change to the threesome in front of the register. As soon as Irvin closed his register and the 3 kids clutching an orange number 17 started to move aside, Jessica stepped in front of the next kids in line. "Could you guess our usual, Irvin?" She turned and gestured toward Derek, Brittany, and Roman, who hadn't yet made it through the throng. Jessica secretly reveled in her superior crowd-parting skills. Brittany was pretty good at getting a room to do her bidding, but she couldn't compete with Jessica. Irvin glanced around and frowned. He began. "I know they were next." Jessica gestured at the kids breathing on her neck, like, literally. One of the kids was chewing grape gum, and not only was her hot breath on Jessica's skin, the grape smell was enough to dominate the grill smells. "But we are in such a rush with, homecoming duties and stuff. If you could just..." She flipped her hair and locked her blue eyes on Irvin's pale brown ones. He shrugged and tapped in the order. One of the boys behind Jessica protested, "Dude." Irvin tried to reassure him. "This'll just take a second." Grape Gum Girl, a volleyball player whose name Jessica couldn't remember, she didn't have to remember it, the girl wasn't anyone worth bothering about, sighed loudly, exhaling spitty gum breath into Jessica's hair. She'd have to go home and shower before she and Brittany went back to school to start programming Rosie Porkchop. "Thanks so much, Irvin," Jessica said. She took money from her backpack and paid for the food. She knew Derek would reimburse her immediately. He never wanted her to pay for anything. That's the guy's job, he always said. It was very sweet. Irvin took her money, gave her change, and handed her an orange plastic number 18. She flashed him a smile designed to leave him feeling like he was special, even though he clearly wasn't. Then she turned. Grape Gum Girl gave Jessica a dirty look. Jessica leaned close to her ear. "Get over it, and you might want to invest in some tweezers. Your eyebrows are growing together." Jessica walked away and didn't even care a little that the Grape Gum Girl was glaring at her back. Jessica could feel it, but it didn't matter. When Jessica returned to Brittany, Derek, and Roman, she handed Derek the number 18. "Here you go. Once you get the food, let's eat in your convertible. It's way too crazy in here." "Sure, babe. Way to rush the line." He pantomimed a defensive forward charging toward the quarterback. Jessica made a kissy face at him and then linked her arm through Brittany's. "Let's let the boys handle the rabid crowd." Brittany nodded. "For sure." She and Jessica tossed their hair in unison and strode from the restaurant, their steps in perfect sync. It was after 8 before Jessica and Brittany got back to the school. Between hanging out with the guys and then going home to shower, and then taking time to redo their hair and makeup, and decide what the perfect programming outfits were, it just took a while before they could return. Letting themselves in the back door of the deserted wing, they stood in the long, quiet hallway and contemplated the 100 feet or so they had to go to reach the classroom. The hallway was only dimly lit by emergency lights, which put the bare tan walls, the scuffed beige linoleum floor, and the lockers lining the hall in gloomy shadows. The lockers in this part of the school weren't used, at least not officially. Jessica knew that some kids left messages for each other in the lockers. She couldn't help but wonder what else might be hidden in there. Because of the empty lockers and equally bare walls and floors, all sounds seemed amplified. Jessica's and Brittany's breathing sounded like it was coming from 20 girls instead of 2. "It's so, creepy in here when no one's around," Brittany said. Her voice echoed down the hall. "You said that the last time we had to stay late," Jessica reminded her, bumping shoulders with Brittany. "Yeah, I probably did, but it's still true." "Yeah." Jessica turned and checked to be sure the outer door locked behind them. When it clicked into place, she nodded. "We're locked in." "Yeah, but with who?" Brittany asked, visibly shivering. "You know, it wouldn't be hard for some perv to sneak into the school during the day and then hide and wait until everyone else is gone and..." Jessica smacked Brittany's arm. "Stop it. You're going to freak me out, too." She rubbed her arms, which were now covered with prickly hairs. "Sorry." Jessica took Brittany's wrist. "Come on." "We should have brought the guys," Brittany said. "Then we wouldn't get anything done," Jessica pointed out. "True. Let's go. Once we're in the classroom, we'll barricade the door like we did last time, if it'll make you feel better." "Me? You've got goosebumps too," Brittany accused. "Okay, so I don't like it in here either." Brittany tugged on Jessica's arm. "Let's hurry." Their footsteps echoing around them, the two of them hurried down the hall. Neither commented when they both occasionally checked over their shoulders. Jessica was relieved when they reached the robotics classroom and shoved the door open. Brittany scrabbled for the light switch before the door could swing shut. The previous time they'd been in after hours, they discovered that the classroom door didn't lock. Some discussion had ensued about whether to get over their paranoia or just give in to it. The conversation had resulted in a give-in-to-it strategy, shoving one of the classroom tables in front of the door. This time, they didn't waste time with discussion. Without speaking, they moved together to the nearest table and shoved it over to block the door. Then they both turned, exhaled, and surveyed the room. The overhead fluorescent lights in the classroom did relieve some of the creep factor of being in the deserted wing. However, all that relief was countered by the eerie presence of all the robotic parts in the room. Metal arms and heads and disembodied torsos weren't exactly comforting decor. Jessica and Brittany went back to the room where Rosie still lay on her cart. Hooked up to both the wall and the laptop, it looked like she was in intensive care or something. At this point, if Rosie were to move, Jessica would have run screaming from the room. Jessica?" Brittany said. Jessica shook her head. "Sorry, you've got me all spooked now." Brittany put an arm around her friend. "Come on. Let's go sit and try out our new lip gloss. That'll make us feel better." I guess it will. I do not understand women. Help." On their way over to the school, they'd stopped at the store to get some munchies in case they were here a while. Their favorite celeb had just released a new lip gloss that caught their eye. Of course they had to buy some. Brittany pulled Jessica down into a chair next to the one she settled on. The girls applied it, pink for Brittany, red for Jessica, and looked at each other. "Gorgeous," Jessica said. Brittany grinned. "I know, right?" Jessica took a deep breath and reached for her computer, which was just where she'd left it. "Okay," she said. "Let's see if we're good to go." She tapped a key to take the computer out of sleep mode and looked at the screen. According to the display, the upload was complete. Jessica began tapping at keys. "Do you, know what you're doing?" Brittany asked. Jessica laughed. "Probably not, but how hard can it be?" She gestured at the screen. "See? Rosie's system is run by a software program that can be modified." She frowned at the screen for a few minutes, reading the lines of code that were already there. Brittany leaned in and read over Jessica's shoulder. "It looks like you just input the descriptive phrases, like that one." She pointed to line 41 of the code, then read what came out after the line number. "Reaches out 7V800. I think it assigns a number to the plain word commands." "I think you're right," Jessica said, twirling a lock of super soft hair around her index finger. "We just need to make a list of all the commands we want to program into Rosie, and then we can assign the right numbers to them and input them." "Exactly right," Brittany said. Jessica peered at the code. "Okay, realistically we're probably limited in what we can have Rosie do, but how about we make a wish list and then see what we can do?" Brittany nodded. "Great idea." Jessica minimized the software screen and opened a blank doc. "Okay, so what do we want our little servants to do for us?" She grinned. "Well, it would be nice if we never had to go get something for ourselves." Brittany leaned back in her chair. The chair creaked, which sent a tremor down Jessica's spine. She ignored it. "Okay, before they get to, all the rest of these commands that they want to make this robot do, which is obviously going to go horribly, horribly wrong, I'm going to put a stop there for now. Bit shorter than usual. Actually, a lot shorter than usual. But there's actually not much left in the story, so I'd rather space it out evenly than have, 5 minutes in the final part, because I feel like that would be more annoying. So I'll leave it at this for now, and we'll finish it up next time. 20 pages or so left, so that'll be a short one too. But we're getting there. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.